Iron Boulder was one of the most popular new Pokemon when the Indigo Disk DLC first released. Iron Boulder had a lot of amazing qualities for an offensive Pokemon, the new signature move Mighty Cleave being chief among them. With 100 accuracy, a solid base power, and the effect of bypassing protection, this is one of the best rock-type attacks that the franchise has ever seen. With fantastic attack and speed to back up this excellent move pool, along with access to booster energy to push that speed even further, Iron Boulder was used as a monstrous late game cleaner. But as this metagame has developed, people have realized that maybe Iron Boulder was a bit overhyped. Iron Boulder's usage has been dropping steadily since release, and in the latest tier shift, Iron Boulder fell down to the UU tier, meaning it didn't even reach the minimum usage required to be ranked in OU anymore. What happened? This was one of the most popular new Pokemon, and Iron Boulder team peaked the ladder, and now it's not even ranked in OU. As the dust settled and new toy syndrome started to wear off with Iron Boulder, I think many people realized that most teams prefer using Iron Valiant as their fast late game cleaner booster energy threat. And Iron Boulder does have some advantages over Iron Valiant. It has certain physical options that Iron Valiant lacks, a different typing which can be useful depending on the team, and it's faster. That's its biggest advantage. It outruns enemy Iron Valiant and other speedy threats. But Iron Valiant is going to be the better choice most of the time. It has just about every option you could ask for, more utility, better typing in its base state. Significantly, Iron Valiant resists Sucker Punch from King Gambit in its base typing, which is very important for a fast threat. Meanwhile, Iron Boulder has to terrestrialize to dodge that Sucker Punch, which is more of a commitment. I think that is a very significant point in Iron Valiant's favor. Iron Valiant also has more set variety, making it less predictable. Surprise options are better on Iron Valiant. You can disguise its set more, whereas Iron Boulder is a bit more predictable, and without even revealing anything, they will have a good idea of what your moveset is and be able to play accordingly. But it's not just that, folks. Iron Boulder has been victim to some unfortunate metagame shifts that have not been kind to our favorite rock. When the DLC 2 metagame first released, there was another new toy that everyone was abusing, Deoxys-S. Not a new Pokemon, but it was freshly unbanned for the first time in quite a while. Access to Deoxys-S in OU was fresh and exciting, and this Pokemon was absolutely everywhere. It was being used as an offensive threat with its fantastic move pool and high speed. It was being used for its utility with access to hazards and light screen and reflect. Iron Boulder had the advantage of outspeeding Deoxys-S with its booster energy boost, and also resisting Psycho Boost. But Deoxys-S usage is also, ironically, slowed down, so this advantage is not quite as relevant as it was in the early metagame. Another point against Iron Boulder in the current Gen 9 OU metagame, and perhaps the most significant reason for its downfall, has been the resurgence and the return of the competitive GOAT, Landorus-Therian, who has risen above Goldango even in the most recent usage stats. Landorus-Therian has had a tough experience in Gen 9 after losing so many of its most important options, including Knockoff, Defog, and Toxic, as well as now having to compete with many superior ground types. Great Tusk being chief among them, the all-new, most popular utility ground type and hazard remover, as well as Gliscor, who has the same exact typing but superior utility in many ways, access to Toxic, Spikes, complete status immunity, amazing defensive value. But Landorus-Therian has risen above Gliscor as well recently, and has returned as one of the go-to defensive pivots. Landorus-Therian is kind of like a middle point between Great Tusk and Gliscor. It doesn't quite have the offensive firepower of Great Tusk, with its Headlong Rush, Stab Close Combat, Knockoff, Ice Spinner, and such options. It doesn't quite have the defensive value of Gliscor, with that incredible chip healing, status immunity, and utility. But it is superior defensively to Great Tusk, and superior offensively to Gliscor. It's right there in the middle, and that is very useful. Landorus-Therian is able to give you a solid defensive backbone against the most common offensive physical attackers in the game. King Gambit, Great Tusk, Iron Valiant, Roaring Moon. It even helps out against Raging Bolt. And unlike Gliscor, it's not as passive and easy to take advantage of. It can pose a threat with new special sets that have been on the rise, using Earth Power and Grass Knot off the back of a decent special attack stat. Despite being severely nerfed in Gen 9, Landorus-Therian is proving that it's just so fundamentally powerful and useful, doing so much in a single team slot, keeping momentum up, giving you that backbone against the format's most common threats. And this surge in Landorus-Therian usage is horrendous news for Iron Boulder, who gets absolutely decimated by the now extremely common Landorus-Therian. Against Great Tusk you at least had Stab Zen Headbutt, which was super effective and pretty solid. And against Gliscor you at least have Mighty Cleave for a powerful neutral hit that even bypasses Protect. But against Landorus-Therian you get eaten alive by that Intimidate, Rocky Helmet, and powerful Earthquake or Earth Power. Landorus-Therian is going to stop your sweep in its tracks as long as it's reasonably healthy. At best it's going to force you to Terrastalize or switch out, wasting your booster energy. That is if it doesn't just KO you outright to begin with. You might think that Iron Boulder could adapt to these developments, perhaps run a different set like a Choice Band Wall Breaker type set off the back of its high attack and speed, but even that kind of set isn't great on this Pokemon. All of its best moves are terrible to lock into. Mighty Cleave can be easily punished by all of the common rock resists, usually Great Tusk. Close Combat has its immunities, ghost types can take advantage of that, and Zen Headbutt will leave you totally vulnerable against King Gambit. It doesn't have the spammable moves that you need on a Choice Band set. Iron Boulder ultimately feels limited in what it can do offensively. It has suffered from recent metagame shifts and it remains outclassed by superior options that provide more value or have more utility or pose more of a threat, have superior typing. This metagame shifts a lot and it has gone in cycles. We have seen things rise up that were previously considered unviable and vice versa, so maybe Iron Boulder could return in the future. Back to relevancy. It has the tools, the fundamental tools, it sets itself apart from other threats, but the current metagame, not very kind to Iron Boulder. In UU though, I'm sure Iron Boulder will excel. I predict that it'll get a ban from UU, it's a bit too powerful for such a format. I gotta be honest and say I don't feel particularly sorry for Iron Boulder. I never liked the guy. Iron Boulder is one of the worst Pokemon names ever conceived. It's not as interesting as the original Terrakion was. It feels like this Pokemon was made in 2 seconds. I'm just going to be upfront. I think it makes sense for such a Pokemon to be good in early metagame where, you know, clicking big buttons is a powerful concept, and as things progress and people use their minds a bit, turns out that this guy isn't as good as initially thought. I was swept up in the Iron Boulder hype early on too, I admit it, but in retrospect this fall off makes sense. This Pokemon just lacks the versatility and malleability to keep up with such an ever-changing metagame. You look at a Pokemon like Dragapult or Iron Valiant, they have a wide variety of tools, inherently powerful typing, and traits that can morph to whatever the metagame ends up being. We've seen Iron Valiant in particular change its common sets multiple times over and have a few different viable sets for OU in multiple metagames. Iron Boulder, however, a bit of a one-trick pony. Uses the same set pretty much every time. Predictable. I will say that's not always the case. King Gambit is number one in the metagame and it's pretty much running the same set every time with slight variations. But that's a Pokemon that's just powerful through brute force. Other Pokemon have to work for it. They have to adapt. Iron Boulder has failed to do so. But what do you think, folks? Do you think this is a temporary development? Will Iron Boulder be pushed by Sisyphus back up to the peak of the mountain once again and return to relevance, or has it bouldered all the way down to the UU depths for good? Only you know the answer, and you must comment it below so that I can understand it myself. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.